Oh, I'm live already. Hey, everybody. We're going to let a few people join in here. Let me know if sound is good. I got the mic on, so it should be good. Actually, I'm pointed the other way. Should I move it here, Amy? All right, now sound should be too good, like you should hear me too much. So we got Amy behind the camera. Abby's on mod, so if you have any questions, feel free to throw them out, and we'll do our best to answer them. I'll at least make up a really good answer if I don't know, so that's always fun. And we'll get started here in like 1 minute. How many people we got? 6, all right. Anybody say if they can hear me yet, Abby? All right, can everybody hear? Test, test. The start of live streams are always weird because you don't want to like start too soon, but you don't want to stand around either. I'll tell you guys a quick story. I just got back from Alaska. I was in the far west part of Alaska in Nome, and when I left, it was 50 degrees, and when I landed in Phoenix, it was 110. So it was kind of like shock when I walked through the plane into the jetway. It was kind of alarmingly hot. So the 115 doesn't feel as good as it used to. All right, we ready to go? Should we get started? Okay, so thanks for joining, everybody. I'm Chad from Turner's Warehouse, and a couple weeks ago we started this knife. If you tuned in the last 2 weeks, I was gone and Haley did ring making, so thanks for watching those. If you missed those, we have them on the channel. You can go check them out. And if you didn't see the first part of this, we also have that on the channel. So if you want to watch that first, then you can watch this, but it doesn't really matter. You can watch them out of order. It would be just fine. So today we're going to continue the knife scale build. It's a Cholla cast knife scale, one of our top choice. And it's on a little 8-inch hunter knife here. And we're going to finish shaping it, and then we're going to do some sanding and finishing, and then we're going to buff this thing. And we're going to see how good it looks but when we do all those things. So I want to kind of try to get a close-up here. Tell me where to go, Amy.
A little bit further forward.
Forward?
There you go. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so this is the side we shaped a few weeks ago. This is the side we need to finish. So you can see this one is like, it's not polished or anything, but it's smooth a little bit. This side we still have glue and roughness. So we're just going to shape this. And then I want to show you how just some real specific sanding can work on your shaping as well as your finish. So, you know, normally when we turn stuff, we have the lathe to help us out by spinning the item. This stuff isn't going to be spinning, so we need to do it all by hand. But if you do certain little things, it really comes out good. And then the buffer is kind of going to be our sorry, Amy just hit her elbow and made me laugh. The buffer is going to be our spinning item to help us buff this as if we were on the lathe spinning the item itself. So let's get started. We're going to jump right into this. The shaping will just take us a few minutes. So let's get this thing shaped out. What I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do first, because as I'm doing it, I'm going to be wearing a respirator. So I won't be able to talk that well. At least you won't be able to hear me as well. So I've got to make sure that my end is square here. I've got a little bit of an angle, which you may or may not be able to see. So I need to square up my end. I need to finish getting my full tang down to the bare metal. And then I need to shape my outer handle on this side that I haven't touched yet. So I've just got a few things to do. It won't take long, and it happens really fast on the sander. Now, the point of this whole live stream from before to now is I'm using stuff that we all have in our shop, most likely. Some sort of sander, a vise, hopefully a lathe. I'm not using anything specific to knife making. I don't know if you can see it in the picture, but there's like a knife grinder there. That stuff makes your life easier if you're making a lot of knives, for sure, but not all of us have that. So I just wanted to show that you can do this with basic tools. And you can do it with even more basic tools than what I'm showing. Not everybody has a belt disc combo, but if you have a 1x30 or a 1x42 sander, you can do everything I'm showing you and more on that. So don't think you have to have any special tools to do this. We have the knife blades pre-made, pre-sharpened, and you just have to do the handles. And the reason we do that is because not everybody has an oven for heat treating or a forge or whatever. So this is just a way to do it. Even from the first video, we got a great response. We had a couple of customers make stuff right away. One customer gave his brother one when they were camping. It was really cool, and he did a great job. So it's really fun to see that. So I'd love to see what you guys make. But let's get this thing shaped up and jump to the sanding and the polishing, because that's the fun stuff. So wherever you want to move, Amy, you can move around whatever's best for the camera. All right, that looks good. So I'm going to square up that back end. So what I'm doing there is trying to mirror on each side the amount of angle I have, so when I hand sand it looks the same on both sides. Okay, so what we've got now is, it's kind of hard to distinguish the two sides. We did do a little hand sanding last time, but you can see a sharper edge here versus this side where we hand sanded. But now we're going to do the whole thing together, which will make it better. So I flattened the outside. This side we had already done last time. I beveled it, so now we have a bevel that's comfortable in the hand. And what we're going to do is just smooth over those sharp edges. Now, if you wanted to leave those more of a sharp edge, you certainly can do that. There's a lot of personal preference and choice in this kind of a thing. So do whatever you think looks good or feels good. It kind of looks cool with square edges, but since I already did the other side, we're going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to go over to the vise, which is another tool that hopefully everyone has, and we're going to mount this thing up. So I like to just put a little cardboard around it. I do have my blade protected with some tape, but a little cardboard helps me feel confident I'm not going to damage my blade. And then I've got some 220. This is just a 220 strip, kind of like from a Turner's pack, you know, the rolls of sandpaper. And I'm not going to go real hard on this. I'm going to try to break this real quick. Break the back of the paper so it's softer. So I'm not going to go real hard because I don't want to scratch up my resin any more than I have to. But I'm going to use this and just kind of give it shape. And by using the longer strip like this, I can really get pressure on this thing. So this happens really fast, so you want to be really careful of what you're doing. But going side to side, come right up here, Amy, if you can. And you can see that I'm perfectly mirroring myself on each side. So I'm hitting in the same spot on each side. And it's going to allow my handle to really look symmetrical. Is that the right word, symmetrical? Yeah. All right, and then I'm going to go back and forth here. Kind of like turning, you want to take your scratches and cross over them a little bit here. But I'm going to do this back end the same way. And this is a thing that you can spend as much time shaping and sanding as you want, just like turning, or you can do barely any. It's totally what you're going for as far as your finished product. I just want a nice smooth handle that's easy to hold, and this is going to get there pretty quick. So the vise is only limited by the way it can hold it. So if you have a vise that can articulate different ways, that's certainly helpful. This one is just simply straight up and down standard jaws. But I'm just going to round these over. I want that shoulder here kind of rounded. Now one thing I'm going to do is kind of double check my sides. I can't flip this thing horizontally, but I'm going to work on the sides while I have it up and down. So I'm just using my thumb here to get in there. And this is 220. I'm going to come back with 400 and 600 on this as well. Can you give me that water? It is hot. This was full of ice like 5 minutes ago. It's gone. So after I go on those sides, I like to come back and do the top again there and just kind of tie all the shaping together. Now there's going to be a lot of scratches on this with 220. To me, 220 is pretty rough, but when you're shaping wood and resin like this on a handle, you need to go down a little bit. Let's get this area. Abby, any questions so far? If you guys have any questions, just punch them in there and Abby will let me know. This is a great task to have headphones on and just listen to music or something. But you can kind of see this handle shaping up already, just the little bit we've done so far.
What's some of your favorite music to listen to while you turn or paint?
What I like to listen to when I'm working, generally, it's fairly loud stuff. I probably listen to Rage Against the Machine more than anything, just because of my youth. But it seems to be good work music because it just keeps you fired up and moving, I guess. I don't know. But sometimes I listen to quieter stuff. I like to listen to podcasts and things too, so not always music. All right, that feels pretty good. So I'm just making sure I don't have any weird edges on any of this. Yep, I got them right there. And when you're using a strap piece like this, it really sands fast. So you got to be careful not to overdo it and misshape things. Did anybody watch the first knife video and make a knife other than the people who I saw in the store? All right, that feels pretty good. So I'm going to flip it because I'm going to still use my 220. And I'm just going to flip my blade over here and do the bottom. So you can see the bottom is a lot more, that sanding really smooths it out and gives you a good feel. The bottom still has our sharper edges. And I don't mean sharp like it'll cut you, just more square. So now we're going to take these down. And this back, we definitely want to get rid of that because that's just chips waiting to happen. And we'll just repeat. So I'm going to start off going back and forth on the whole thing. Now if you want to get into knife making and you want to do more than just handles like we're doing today, the best thing you can do is look for a local forge or a local blacksmith or bladesmith. It seems like a lot of knife makers, all good knife makers seem to have a mentor that they'll talk about. So like it's good to find somebody who's really good at it and try to learn from them or work with them if they'll let you. So that's a good thing to do. And it seems like there's blacksmith shops popping up all over. We got a great local one that we go to here. So look for that if you're wanting to get into this. And you don't have to make just knives at a blacksmith shop. You can make all kinds of cool stuff. But today we're talking about knives.
So Homer Lex, who we posted his pictures, they were the ones that was like the really, really pretty handle. He's on.
Oh, cool.
In the last video, he said it inspired him to make that knife because he'd been kind of wanting to, but hadn't.
Oh, good. Well, that's cool. Yeah, that was Homer Lux, is it?
Yeah, and he cast his own scales. And
Oh,
they look
nice.
So good.
Yeah, and don't forget, so these are scales that we sell, obviously, that I'm using, but you can cast your own scales, you can cut your own wood. You don't have to buy anything for this. If you already have stuff, use that up. We have molds too, so if you do want to cast your own, you can get specific knife scale molds. So that's cool that he made those, and sometimes you just need a little push to like finally try something you want to try.
You can see the pictures of it on Facebook.
Oh yeah, so on our Facebook and Instagram you can see those pictures. I remember seeing them, but I don't remember what they were. Were they Cholla? No.
No, they were just resin, like red and blue.
Oh yeah, they're resin. Yeah, so check those out on Instagram or Facebook. That's cool. That's good to hear that somebody gave it a try. Round Town, he's the one that posted. I think he did 3 Chollas like the day after the first live stream because he was pumped up. That's Mike with Round Town on Instagram. Round Town?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say Homer Lex's name is Mike too, but.
Oh, we got multiple mics. All right. So I'm just taking off this sharp point here.
Everybody's chatting about the weather.
Whew. It seems like the weather's extreme, whether it's hot or cold or storms or whatever. It's brutal. I was in Nome, Alaska for 7 or 8 days, and it rained the entire 7 days. It let up for one like 5-hour period, which was quite a change from Arizona. So here, let's take a look at this. Now this is pretty good shaped. I mean, I might work on it a little more normally, but it feels pretty good, both hands. We've got good smooth edges. It looks pretty uniform. But I want you to see how it looks because by the time we get to the end of this video, the red's going to be shiny and polished, and with just a little work, we're going to get some really cool looks out of this. So this is a dirty, dusty, scratched scale set that we're going to now work on a little more. So I'm going to put it back in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet paper. And first I want do some 400, 600, and I'm just going to cut a strip. And anybody who knows me knows that anything I can wet sand, I do. So this is going to be wet. I'm going to get my paper wet here. I'll even put a little water on my project. Look how good it looks. See? Done. Just kidding. But you're going to see the sawdust dripping off here. I mean, you can see it puddle right there. See that? So this is 400 wet dry. And the reason I do wet is the same as for turning. One, mainly, I think it makes a better finish on anything to be wet sanded. And two, I don't have to breathe the dust because it's in the water, not in the air. So I think it's a win-win personally. Some people don't like to wet sand. That's fine. Do whatever you want. But I'll put my finishes up against a lot of people, and they're all wet sanded, so that's why. But it's a lot harder when you have to do it by hand versus letting the lathe do it. But you can already see like how quickly the metal starts to polish, the Cholla's polishing, and these scales are stabilized, so getting them wet might not be the best idea if they were raw wood, although it'd still work fine. But since they're stabilized, I'm not worried about them at all. So I'm going to get those edges, I'm going to get that face. And even my brass pins should be nice and polished by the time I'm done here. Get this on my finger. If you have a way to hold your knife sideways, it's a lot easier to sand flat versus up and down, but do what you got to do. Well, look at that thing already starting to come out with just 400. I mean, that's crazy, right?
Somebody was mentioning in the chat that they have done a couple knives, but this is like inspiring them to go do a knife again.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's, you know, I get caught up turning all the time, and it's fun to do something different every now and then. It can motivate you back to your original one, too, to do things outside the box. Well, if you do another one, send us pictures, because we love seeing the pictures. And Amy will share it on social media, so everyone that watches can check it out. So look at that. Like, that's a pretty good difference just with a few minutes of hand sanding. And it's super smooth. So I'm going to do the back end now, and then I'll do the other side. And I do want to kind of polish up the steel a little bit. The steel is going to, this is a good thing, a good kind of point and tip. The steel will get a little shiny depending on what it is. This is the way this is heat treated, it doesn't get as shiny as some. It's more of a matte. But one thing you need to be careful of is when you're sanding this, just like with turning, if this is raw wood, not stabilized, and you sand steel next to it, you're going to end up with a lot of black and graying in your wood. And what that is you're sanding the steel, and the powder, the dust from the steel will get into the wood. And there's really no good way to get it out. You really can't, other than just sanding it out, which means you have to take off quite a bit. So if you're going to do that, make sure you're sanding in a way that doesn't allow that to happen, like you seal the wood with something, or your scales are sanded before. Because if you sand the metal and the wood together, you're going to end up with black in your scales, and it just doesn't look good. And that can even happen with micarta, or not so much resin, but anything porous. So micarta is fabric, so it can happen with that. And you just want to be careful, because you hate to do all this work and spend time and money and have it, you know, not fail necessarily, but not look good because of something you could have prevented. So that's just an idea to keep in mind. And you can see, maybe Amy will show you the ground here. I'm making a mess, so you want to be okay with that and know that you're going to do that, and it'll dry. So, but prepare. But I'm keeping this thing really wet. I'm getting all the dust off of it by putting more water on it and letting it drip off. and that's fine. All right, we're looking pretty good here. This is going much faster than I thought, maybe because I'm talking. But see all that? That's just the goop, the dust in the resin. So that's some wood, some resin, some whatever. All right, let's flip it over. So looks better already. Now we got to get the bottom. Oh, sorry. All right. So I've kind of used this out. There's not much abrasive left to it, so I'm going to cut another piece. Which, I mean, depending on the wood or the material, you might go through a lot of abrasives on some of these projects. This one isn't going to be bad at all. Probably this is the last piece of 400 I'll need, and then I'll do it with 600 and we'll be in good shape.
Richard says he uses a cookie sheet to catch the water.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Richard uses a cookie sheet to catch the water. I just let it get all over the floor and make a mess. Makes me feel like I did more when it's a bigger mess. So whatever you like. Oh yeah, this is looking good. Every time we do one of these Chollas, I like them more and more. We've done a lot of them. Get those sides real good. Hold this up. Abby, you awake?
Yep.
Okay. Was that a thumbs up?
Yep.
I didn't know if I put her to sleep. Sanding can be pretty boring, Abby. I'll give you that. Oh man, this looks good. You guys got to do this. It's so cool to see it shine. And if I was doing just stabilized wood, I'd be doing it the same way. I might shape it a little further on the sander, but I'd be hand sanding it wet, just like this. And that stuff can come out like glass, so it's so cool.
Somebody mentioned hand sanding is the worst, but you can't argue with the results.
Right? Yeah, you can kind of just make sure you get every little nook and cranny so perfect. Yeah, you just can't do, it's hard to do all this on a machine, no matter how good your machines are. It's hard to beat attention to detail, which I'm not really super detailed on this one because we're live and we have to kind of briefly go through everything as quick as we can, but not bad. All right. So I can just feel around, make sure I don't have any spots that I want more, like that one. Kind of like how I always have my finger on the tube on the lathe. I always rest my finger on the back, that's why, and that's kind of what I'm doing here. So let's take a look. We're done with that one. So obviously it's wet, which is going to make it look a little better. So it's kind of a muted, like a matte finish look, the 400, but you can see there's no major scratches, at least not that I can see. Oh, I got it wet again. Looks pretty good. Our back looks good. I'll probably hit the back a little more with something a little more shiny. But we look pretty good. Our pins are nice and shiny. So we're going to jump to 600. And we're just going to quickly go over it with the 600. All right. And this is just wet dry. It's automotive grade. We have a few different ones of these at Turner's, and I only promote them because I know they're good. I bought automotive wet dry at Harbor Freight and it fell apart, so I don't like that stuff. But if you're not getting it from us, if you're going to get it from a automotive paint store. Usually they have really good quality, and it'll hold up better in the water because you're gonna beat it up pretty much in the water with the sanding. And if it's not good, it'll fall apart. It'll get the grit will just be all over your project and not where it's supposed to be. So I'm just getting the side here. Come back to the top. The end of this is looking real good. Oh, bummer. This will make you appreciate sanding on the lathe too, so if you do a few of these, you'll like polishing your pens and other projects on the lathe more. Okay, let me flip this over. So this cardboard's pretty soggy, so that's why I have a second one. Usually happens that way. And there are, if you get into this, there are really inexpensive knife vices that are like a tube with two pieces of usually HDPE or something in it, and you can slide it in, tighten it down, and then you can rotate it all the way around. So instead of being straight up or sideways, you can kind of tweak it and do one side, roll it, do the other side. Really nice to have if you're going to do a lot of knives. Oh man, this 600 makes it look really good. I guess I'm pushing too hard. Well, I'd already used some of this on something else, but... All right. Get these shoulders. At least it's hot. That's nice. How many people are watching? 15, and only a couple have made a knife. Come on, guys. Make something sharp and fun. All right, that's looking good. Just kind of rolling my fingers there. So once I'm to the point where I'm happy with the sanding, I'm going to get a paper towel here and dry this off. You know, I don't want any deep scratches. I want it all smooth and sanded out. So can you see that okay? Yeah. So like we want to look at this, and it looks pretty even. The sides look pretty good. So I got a little bit of glue on the top. That's all right. So there's only one scratch I see, and it's in the brass. So that would just take a little more sanding on that side. But I think we're going to move on to the next step here. So what I'm going to do is kind of just dry this out. Now, ideally, you'd probably want to just set this down and let it sit for several hours or the next day. But because we're making a video here, live stream, we don't have that option. So we're going to go ahead and do the next step, even though it might be too early. Because even though this stuff's stabilized, there is some wood in there. And actually, see where it's dark there and lighter? So that's probably more dry than that. That's probably more wet. So we're going to try to get that a little drier. And then we're going to put on some finish. And I'm going to just tell you what we're going to do while we let this air blow on this here. We're going to take Mylan's friction finish, which is made for turning, but it works for all kinds of stuff. We're going to put that on here. We're going to rub it on by hand, kind of buff it, and then we're going to let it dry for a couple minutes because we're in an oven here, so it dries really fast. And then we're going to buff it. So look at this now. Remember how dark that was? It's drying that quick. Can you see that? I don't know if it's visible. So by the time that's light, we're probably fine. But like I said, if you have the option, always let it sit a little while. Even an hour would be good or better than what we're going to do, a couple hours. But we'll move on just for the sake of the live stream. Yeah?
Can you use a heat gun?
Could you use a heat gun? I guess you could. Maybe just the air would probably be better than heat necessarily, because you just want to flow the air over it to get the moisture to dry. You know, it's like 115 out and not very humid, so this is drying really, really quick. You might not have that where you are, so you might need heat, but I'd rather just let it air dry for hours. That's almost all gone. One little spot there. I'll use friction. We'll dry it. All right, so there's our kind of matte finish looking. That's sanded up to 600. You could, of course, go a little further. You could go up to 800 or 1,000, whatever you want. But since we're going to buff this, I think we're going to be just fine. And I mean, obviously it's a knife, so it's going to get a little beat up. So we don't want to put anything too fragile on it. Like I would never do a CA finish on this because it would certainly get chipped or scratched in use. So we're going to leave it as is with just the friction finish. And that won't do a whole lot other than maybe soak into the wood just a little bit for us. So let's do that. Do it nice and early here. All right, so I'm just going to take a clean paper towel. I've got my Mylan's. Now Mylan's is two-part. Generally it's separated, but I already shook it up earlier when I used it. You want to give it a good shake. And just like with pen stuff, the key here is less is more. So you don't need to flood your whole piece with it. You just need a couple of drops. And then we're going to work it in. Now, it's going to take a little more than a pen. I always say 1 drop on a pen, but we're going to need more than that. But see, it's nice and even. It's not gooey and sticky. If I had flooded this, it would kind of be a soppy mess because it's essentially sitting on top until it soaks in. So I just want to make sure I get everything covered. And if I need more, I can always add a drop more. But I always do a drop at a time. And my paper towel now is kind of soaked up a little bit too, so it's even spreading some. But that side is probably pretty good. Now here again, Mylan's might take 20 minutes to dry in some places. I think here it takes about 30 seconds. But there's the non-Mylan side, and there's the Mylan side. So that's got a little more shine to it. That's the side we just did. That's the side without anything. So let's do this side now. And you can see that a lot of what we're doing applies to lathe work and our other stuff that we do a lot of times. So I'll put 2 drops on there. Start on the bottom. And you can see it's dry, like there's nothing on here. So I'm getting it all onto the piece. And it's definitely going to soak in a little bit. Kind of rub it in. All right. Now I want to just let this sit until it's not sticky, which luckily for me is pretty quick. So I'm going to let this sit for a second, tell you guys about something. This month, coming up, September. Everyone has asked for bespoke or kitless pen stuff. So this is kind of kitless custom pen making month. So the next 3 live streams, 3, right? The next 3, maybe more if they need to be, are going to be all about kitless pens. So next week we're going to go over the tooling and how it works and that kind of thing, and then we're going to make the pen the next couple weeks. So if you're interested in bespoke or kitless pens, whatever you want to call them, custom pens, be sure and tune in. Make sure you subscribe, because those are going to be some good live streams. We're also going to put out a video series so you can watch the video anytime, but the live streams are good if you've tried it or you're going to try it, because you can ask questions and we can work stuff out right there live on camera. So if you have anything you want to talk about, these next 3 weeks are going to be all about custom pens. So be sure and check that out. That's going to be a lot of fun. Amy, did I miss anything? Okay, good. All right, so let's look at this handle. Now this thing looks pretty good to me. I mean, I'm not super picky with my knives. So it looks good. You could honestly probably call this finished, wouldn't you say? What do you think? But we're gonna step it up here and we're gonna get a little shinier. So let's buff one side first. What do you think? Buff one side and then compare. Just so you can see what you can do, because this is only sanded to 600, and most of us, when we do anything acrylic on the lathe or resin on the lathe, usually we sand to like 20,000 with micro mesh and Zona paper and stuff. So we only went to 600, and this is, there's a lot of resin here, especially this side. So let's see what the buffing wheel can do.
Which side?
Which side are we going to buff?
From which side?
Oh yeah, which side should we buff though? This is the more resin side or the less resin side? A or B? What do you guys want to see buffed first? I am going to buff it all eventually, but let's do a comparison. A or B? The first one to vote gets it. B. So this was A, this was B. Good choice. All right, so let's step over here to the lathe. So just a standard mid-size lathe, Rikon 150. I've got our 3 wheels set up. If you don't have a buffing system, it's probably something you want to look into, because I know we use ours constantly. We actually have 2 of these because we use one for metal and then one for wood and resin. And it's really nice because as dirty as this one is, metal gets it really gross, so it's even worse. We're going to use 2 compounds, Tripoli and white diamond. Tripoli on the first one, white diamond on the second one, and the third one is always nothing for me. That's how I like it. Some people wax them. I don't wax. Abby, was there a question? You good? Okay. All right, so I'm going to turn this on. We'll go as slow as we can here. Which this one is set to 920. That's fine. So I'm going to load the wheel with the compound. Just a little bit like that. Go ahead and put the white diamond on. And we're going to do A, so get a good look. Let's take a look. All right, we good? Let's do it. Now, with a knife or a pen or anything you buff, always consider how these wheels are spinning. If you put something right into here, watch my finger. See it pull it down? It's going to pull it down. And if you pull a knife out of your hand, you could potentially hurt yourself or damage the knife. So you always want to approach the wheel in a safe fashion. The way this is spinning, I can put this up sideways here, and I'm pushing into the wheel gently, but the wheel is going that way, so it's not trying to grab it and throw it out of my hand. Now, when you do pens or something, you'll definitely throw one out of your hand because that's part of the process of learning. But you don't want to do that with a knife, so you want to be real careful how you buff with a knife. But I'm not going to try to do the ends or the top. I'm just going to do the side so we can do a comparison. And you don't want to overheat your wheel either. You want to keep it moving. You can actually melt resin with a buffing wheel, as crazy as that sounds. There's a lot of friction here. Now I can go a little sideways if I can get my grip a little better like that. And what you're going to see too is the metal in this, the pins, the brass, they're going to look better from the buffing wheel too. It'll actually take out some of those scratches. All right. So let's now go to the clear. Here, I'll try to hold this so you can see better. Okay, so here's our side B.
Hold on.
Bring it up. Okay.
Okay, yeah. Come forward a little.
All right. Now look at the pins on this specifically. I mean, they went from scratch. See the pins on here that are scratched? They were scratched on the other side too, and that very short amount of buffing, like look at the shine we got out of the resin. We polished brass. I mean, it's really an impressive tool, the buffing wheel. So let's do the whole thing so you can see the whole thing done. But I mean, it's almost too shiny. It almost looks too pretty.
It looks wet.
It looks wet, but it's dry as a bone. All right, so let's do the whole thing. This will just take a few minutes. We'll get in here. We're gonna get the top, the bottom, the insides of the shoulders, everything. So again, I'm holding it to where I'm not gonna hopefully have it pulled out of my hand. Now the hardest part is this shoulder right here. So I like to try to get it in there and just kind of keep it moving. And there, I was able to get it. So I'll do the other one the same way. All right, get that top. Now if you're gonna do a pen or something, a handle, you can always make a little jig to kind of go up into your pen so you have a longer handle. It's awful hard to hold a pen tube on a buffer and not let it fly out of your hand. So the back, you see how I'm pushing into the wheel, pushing into the spin, rather than if I came up here, it would pull it down. So just kind of learn how the wheel will throw stuff, and then you can kind of work around that. And this is some really cool stuff. The buffing wheel is really fun. It really can improve your finishes. Many times when customers have come in and they haven't been able to get a good finish and they've spent hours trying other stuff, we come to the buffing wheel for 5 or 10 minutes and we can make it look good. So don't discount it. The other thing is we're going to have some real cool buffing stuff coming up soon where we're going to do some wood buffing and things. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Oh, this is looking cool. If you guys don't want to make a knife after this, I don't know what else I could do. This is looking good. So what I did there, I went back to the first wheel just on this side. I noticed that my pins still had some scratches. And if I just give it on this side, I can get those scratches out with my Tripoli wheel. And I pretty much got them. So I'm just going to go over that again with that one. And you notice I'm not sitting in any one spot. I like to keep it moving even if it's slow. And that's just so I don't overheat any one part of the handle. I've actually got some buildup of the compound on there. Work on the side here for a sec. All right. I don't know if you can see, that's already looking pretty shiny. We got a question. What is it?
Would you ever take the tape off the blade to buff the blade?
So the question is, would I take the tape off the blade to buff the blade as well as the handle? Yes. Typically I would do the handle first, probably. because I use a separate wheel for the blade. Otherwise, I'm going to muck up my blade with the metal even more than it already is, my wheel. So I would do it, but I'd probably do it in 2 steps. The handle first, then the blade. But you got to be super careful buffing without anything on the blade, especially if the blade is sharp. Because, I mean, even just holding it, you're in a lot of awkward positions here to get a good hold on it. You don't want it to cut you. Or even worse, if it gets pulled out of your hand, you don't want it to cut you on the way out, because that's really uncontrolled and dangerous. But yes, you could definitely do that. And buffing the blade is not a bad idea at all. You can make the blades look really good with the buffer. All right, I got to redo this very back end real quick. I'm just going to hit the very back. I just had a little bit of gook on there or something. So I'm going to redo my white diamond. That's a little better. And the nice thing is, if you do this and you got an area that needs a little more attention, you just go back and give it attention. I mean, I'm doing this all fairly quickly. I'm not, nitpicking each spot like I might normally, because I just want to show you guys the overall results. But definitely take the time to keep looking at each part. Now I'm on the back wheel here. I'm rotating the whole knife into it because I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So there's a few spots I'm going to probably nitpick and go back and hand sand, and I'll show you what those are. But I think overall you're going to get the point that you can do a pretty nice knife handle with a pretty, where's the best way to hold this so you can see it? So just using tools that most of us have, sanders, a lathe, a vise, it's a pretty nice looking handle. It's certainly shiny, I would say. I'm giving Amy a hard time here getting it. There we go. But you can see, so I'm going to probably go back and hand sand the metal a little harder because I want it just a little bit shinier. But the handle itself, I mean, it almost looks like a CA finish, but it is certainly not. It's just sanded to 600 and polished. So you can get really good results. This will be a durable handle because there's nothing coating it other than that little bit of Mylan's friction finish, which I wanted for the wood. I didn't necessarily need it on the resin, and it's not on the resin anymore because the buffer certainly removed it all. But we did get the resin looking good, which was my goal. So I hope that helps everyone have a little clarity on how easy it is to make a knife handle. Doing the blade and all that's a whole nother story, but we're talking just putting handles on knives here. So what do you think? Any other questions? Hopefully you guys will give this a try. You don't need a lot of tooling. Check out the pre-made blades if you want to do this and you don't have the way to shape and heat treat blades. You can still make a cool knife for yourself. There are cool ways to make sheaths, or if you do leather work, so that's another fun project. But yeah, give it a try and definitely kind of experiment. It's kind of fun to do this. So hopefully you guys like that. If you do have any questions, email us at Turner's Warehouse or comment here and we'll hit it up. If you didn't see the first one of this and you want to see how we did the pins and attached all that, go back and watch the first video. And we'll catch you guys for Custom Pen Month, which we're calling September. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll probably make a few custom pens. Maybe we should do a custom pen giveaway too, like for one of the ones we make on a live stream. That'd be kind of fun. Yeah. If you guys want us to do a giveaway of a live stream pen, make a comment here so we know. But all right, thanks for watching. Get out to the shop and give it a try. And I'll post some better pictures of this here in a little bit. Thanks for watching.